let's start with this as this is going to be relevant for today. So let's start with this question. In the last stream, I mentioned that all binary data is generally represented by a string. Why is that? Well, a binary blob is a length plus, some array of bytes, usually accessed through a pointer, and that's what a string is in the language already, because that decision was made very early on. Like, I don't want to have to worry about zero terminating things. It's a common source of bugs in C. It also has, it's questionable performance-wise, because if you don't know how long your string is, various, like string compares take longer, for example. Well, not necessarily longer, but they happen differently and have the potential to take longer. But just like not knowing how long your string is just introduces a certain degree of uncertainty into various aspects of code. So early on I said, okay, string is going to be something where you know what the length is, and so you don't need zeros. And once you don't need zeros to terminate it anymore, then you can have zeros in there. So it simplifies everything to say a string could be either binary or text, right? And text is kind of binary these days anyway if it's UTF-8. So really the only difference between binary data and so-called text is that binary data could have zeros in it, which is a very small difference. So why care about that, really? Okay. Let's start. So what I want to do today is rebuild a system that we use in the Witness and actually in Braid and other projects to load, tweak variables that you can use to just, quickly change things in the game. So we showed this in the previous stream, but this is a common thing that most game engines have, at least one version of. So here's a file, and it's just got a bunch of sections with variables that I can tweak, right? It's a very simple format. Here I say like, oh, here's audio, and here's a bunch of variables related to audio that we might want to change, right? This is sort of the default mix, so, footsteps are quieter than ambiances and whatever, right? Oh, here's our physics variables. Our texture atlas has a subfolder in tools where these variables live, right? So that's all fine, and I guess we have, whoops, I hit the wrong key. We have probably 300 and something of these variables in the Witness because the file is 378 lines long and only some of those lines are blank. So right now in this new engine, there's no equivalent of this, and I would like to make an equivalent of this. And I don't want it to be a compile time thing. So you could imagine some metaprogramming thing where you read this file and you convert it to code and you compile in that code. But the problem with that is that I want to hot load this file all the time, right? So I want to have the game up on the screen, and maybe I'm listening to it and I change the props volume mix right here and it's automatically reflected in the game or whatever, right? Or I change gravity and then you see gravity is different in the game instantly without having to recompile or reload, right? So that's really a lot of the utility of this kind of file, is quick changes that you see right away. Now, the thing about C++, let's go to the C++ version and I'll just sort of start looking at it. So this is a header file for, oh, geez. Let's get rid of these control M's. All right. So this is a header file, and it's just got all this infrastructure that we have to build up about metadata of what all these things are, because the variables that we want to process could be different types, right? They could be integer or float or Boolean or string, or you could bind a name to a subfolder, and you're sort of making a mini type system, almost like you would have in a programming language. So here's a binding where we say there's a name and it's bound to a value of some type, right? And so in the code, so all these variables here in this file have to have some version in the code, right, that the program knows how to read. And you can do that one of two ways. You could have some loose kind of system where it's just like a hash table that's very abstract, and you ask for the value bound to a name and it returns that value. That's not what we do usually. What we do is, in general, we've got just a struct somewhere in memory, and these values are bound directly to the memory of that struct. So when this file gets reloaded, these values get poked directly in there, and then they're in memory like any other value. So it's very quick to read from that struct because it's like you would read from any struct in the language. You don't have to go through any more indirection. So that's the main way that we do that. But the thing about C++ is you don't get any kind of metadata that makes this useful. So we have all this stuff here, like to attach values, for example. So let's look at that. I mean, you know what? This is this is going to be too annoying to look through. I will just let me look at how this is used, because that'll be the most illustrative, I think. So, okay, wait. We use a macro for this. I don't remember where this macro is declared. See if it's in shared.h. What is going on? So Emacs is now being very frustrated. I don't know what it just did. Okay. One of many reasons why I want to get out of Emacs. So we were looking for the attach macro. There it is. So basically, we have these stupid macros, and here's what happens. We make all these folders in our own data structures to represent these folders in the file, right? So we make one for audio, that's there. We make one for physics, etc., right? And we have to attach every single variable that we want to use into every single one of those, because C++ doesn't have a way of telling us what the variables are named or anything. So anytime we want to add a new variable, we have to do at least 3 things. It used to be 4 things. Now it's down to 3. So anytime we want to add a new variable, first we add it to this file, right? Second, we add it to the actual data structure where it lives, which let's find one of these. So here's, a struct called shared globals that we have, and it's just got a bunch of these variables. Like here's the mix variables, right? So the second thing is we have to make the declaration. The third thing is we have to initialize this value, which prior to C++11 you couldn't even do in the same place. You had to have like a constructor elsewhere in the program. Fortunately, that's not necessary anymore, because that was very error prone and it was very easy to forget to initialize something. So now we put the initializers right there, except sometimes we forget. So like if you took that gravity line out of the file, then gravity would not necessarily be initialized anymore, which is not good. And then you have to actually attach it. And once you do all 4 of these things, then you can actually use the variable. And that's kind of a pain, and it's stupid. And every time you add a new variable, well, you have to do 3 things, right? And then just the amount of code to support this is really annoying. So here in just binding this particular set of variables, well, you've got at least a line of code per variable to do this attach thing, right? Which we already said there's 300 variables. So we've got like 300 attaches. We've got the system to do this, the CPP in the H file, it's about 1,500 lines in the CPP and about 300. So it's like 1,800 lines of code at least. That's if I'm not forgetting some stuff. Just to make something happen that's relatively simple, right? All we want to do is go from these things to the variables of the same name, right? And then plus the way this variable system is working, it's like heap allocating a bunch of ancillary data structures that we shouldn't really need to, and I could optimize that, but then that's extra work that makes things harder that I shouldn't have to do. Anyway, that's the problem statement. So I want to duplicate the functionality of this system in a way that uses the features of the new language to make it not such a pain in the butt. And I think we will be able to do that, but I actually haven't thought too carefully about what exactly I'm going to do today. I just decided to dive in and do it. So this is going to be interesting. So is there any questions so far about that mission statement? Does everybody kind of, I mean, on the one hand, I glossed over some stuff, but on the other hand, if I go into all the details of all of this, it's going to be really boring, and because it's just like a million tiny things that you do to hook all these values together, right? So yeah, prefix questions with @ in my handle. While I'm waiting for questions, I'm going to start just by copying this file, because we want a sample file to work on. So I'm going to copy this into the new project, Sokoban, run tree, data, all that variables. And I'm going to delete most of the variables. You know, like, because we just want enough to be an example right now. I don't know, that's pretty good, and then these are all first person kind of variables, and this isn't really a first person game. I don't know. You know, we'll get some controls, if any of them make sense. You know what? None of these make sense. Screw it. Wow, MK. I know what that is. Well, you know, we could keep like vsync. Okay, that'll be enough things to test for now. Although we'll add more later, because you notice that none of these have any like subfolders. So first we'll build the system without subfolders with just like main folders, and then we'll add the subfolder functionality. Why not treat configs? Here's a question. Why not treat configs like the internationalization from yesterday, where you just save the values in memory with pointers to them by key? You could do that, but you know, then you're doing what I just showed in the C++ version, a lot of that, where you sort of duplicate a lot of work, reduplicate a lot of concepts that already sort of exist in a programming language already, like what all these types are and stuff. But also, it's slower because you have to ask for the value, right? Like in the internationalization, I give it a string and I say, hey, look this up in the hash table and tell me what the value is. And if we're drawing those on the menu, I do that at least once per string per frame, which is fine for something like a menu because it's not that big of a deal. But if you have something like a gravity value and you want to know the value of that in the inner loop of your program somewhere, then doing those queries a lot will be very slow. And then to try to get around that, you would end up doing something like caching the value in a local value so you don't have to ask for it all the time. And that makes your code more complicated and then also error prone, because what if the variables file changes? Maybe some of the cache values are being stored longer term, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's no good reason to make this slow, so we're not going to, is sort of the answer there. Am I prioritizing efficiency? I thought I explained this enough. Yeah, this is supposed to be a very efficient system. The only time we'll do anything slow is when we're loading this file, right? Once we have the values in memory, it's going to be very fast to use them. Attach is just, it's a macro that binds the string name of a variable to the C++ memory location for that variable, right? Because that's the thing that C++ doesn't ever give you, is the correspondence between a name and a memory location. So attach is a macro that expands to like stringify the name and pass that to a function so it can do something with the string and then also take the address of the name, right? And then that goes off into a hash table or a list of values or something so that you can look up the name and get a pointer back. I don't really read SIGGRAPH papers very often, no. Which is not that they're not necessarily useful, I don't know, it's just I don't really do cutting edge rendering very much. So yeah. Is there going to be a user interface for these variables? Probably not for these. For other stuff, like for entity data, there will be a user interface, but for these, there's few enough of them and it's easy enough to just edit them in the file that I don't think we've ever really wanted a user interface for these. Can I get it down to one step where I add new variables with the new language, maybe some sort of auto code generation from the config? Well, see, the thing is, I want the programmer to be in control of where all these variables live, right? So these mix variables might be just stored on the sound player, right? And then oh, that's interesting, actually. I need to think about, because like I said, I haven't thought too deeply about this. There may be some difficulties with what I just said in terms of keeping the structure light. So I don't know, why don't we just try, let's just try working on it and we'll see where it is. Anyway, so I don't think I added this to source control. People keep asking about JIT stuff. Someone's asking, will it be possible to generate code and compile it into a runnable procedure at runtime? Yes, if you're going to dynamically link that procedure. I don't know why you really would want to do that. I think JIT is what makes languages like Java kind of terrible. This language is being conceived as very specifically a compiled, pre-compiled language. If you want to do stuff like that, you'll be able to, but it really should be the exception. It shouldn't be like a thing that you're doing all the time, I don't think, in my opinion. All right. So let's just go start programming. So I'm going to go into source, and so maybe after the command line arguments, I don't know if it should be after or before, but we'll say init variables, right? And to do that, we'll make a new file down here, init variables, and here's what it's going to do. It's going to say s for a file, data, success, read entire file, data, all dot variables. I should use log, but we'll just say print for now. I'm just not used to using the log procedure, which maybe means I should make it simpler because I never use it. Okay, So otherwise, I will say print all about variables has this many bytes. Data.count. Let's call this file. File data. That's pretty unambiguous. File, you might think it's like a file pointer or file handle. All right, so now in main, let's import vars, and let's add it to source control. All right. Okay, maybe I'll try switching to conmu from commander then, because I don't care about git at all. All right, so that compiled, and let's run, and it says it's got 254 bytes, which sounds fine. Let's test that by saying that should have more bytes. It does. So we're correctly loading the file. That's great. Now what do we want to do? We want to line by line parse this file. So let's do this. While true, line, get next line from the pointer to the file data, because we want to modify the file data to like chunk it forward, and we'll also get a line of data in the middle. Now, one nice thing about this, so the nice thing about not having zero terminated strings also is that I can get a line of text in the middle of the file without having to drop a zero in to terminate a line, right? In C, you might end up making a separate buffer for your line, whereas here, I can just point to the middle of the file data and change the length so that it only contains that sub piece, right? So if we got the empty string back, then we'll break because we're done. Otherwise, we'll print line there, and line number, because we're going to want to count the line number in case we get an error, right? And line. Okay. So the line number, okay. Now we need to define get next line. And I had a version of this in C++, and I just want to look at it. I don't know if I'm going to really I don't even know if I do /R yet in the compiler. So the C++ version is just like, okay, we start, we keep going till we see a new line or a /R. Yeah. You know what? Let's just not even bother looking at that one. In the library, I have these find character from right and find character from left, so I can just use that. So let's try that. Get next line. Let's call it consume next line, because that'll make it clear that why we're modifying the file data. S is I don't know. SP is a pointer to a string, and we return a string. So let's just take S out of that pointer. Let's call something T, find character from right, or from left. So for now, I'm just going to do this with new line. And maybe I'll make an option that takes 2 characters or something. So let's just see. So we go to the new line, right? And if if we get back the empty string for t, then that means there is no new line, so we'll just return whatever's left of s. So we will say, we put the frickin' Emacs. All right, we put the empty string there and return s. Otherwise, we return, so here we'll be pointing at the new line. So we want to, advance t by one character. Maybe I should make an inline procedure for that, because that's very common. I think I already have one somewhere, but anyway. Go past the new line, then return that as the remaining file data, right? Otherwise, or before we do that, we now want to make we don't want to return t. We want to say sp equals t, and we want to return s, and s will be it's already pointing at the start of this data. So we just want to say s.count. We want to go, we'll skip the new line. We won't put the new line in s. So we should be able to say, I think, s.count minus equals t.count, right? Because s used to include t, and now we're subtracting all the characters that are in t. Yeah, I think that's right. I don't know, man. Let's see what happens. Hey, look, it worked. Oh, wait, no, it didn't work. I think it's because there's not \ns in the file. Either that or this procedure is broken, but I suspect I need to, \n is character 13, and that's character 10. That didn't work either. Huh. Okay, let me first of all verify what number I am looking for, right? Because I don't remember how lines are delimited. So we'll say for 0 to 10, this is just going to be some garbage code we write really fast, print and file data sub it, print new line. So we're just going to print out what the first 10 bytes are, which will be :/ 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like around byte 8, we should see our line terminator. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 13, 10. Okay. We'll have to deal with both of those eventually. I think we're going to make our own version of this find character from left that takes care of that. But let's say let's just see if that even works. No. So maybe find character from left is just broken. Like maybe I never tested it. Yeah. Oh, wait. No, dude. Okay, I just got confused about what this does. This is poorly named, right? Because I was assuming it would return to me the rest of the string. But what this actually does is all of what I already wanted to do. Right? Because it's returning from me from the beginning of the string to this character. So consume next line is just frickin' okay, if we didn't find that character, we return S. Otherwise, we'll say result, or the rest of the string is T is S, rest dot S, or rest dot count minus equals T dot count, rest dot data plus equals T dot count equals rest, return T. So T already has the value that we wanted. Except that only worked on the first line. Why is that? It's because we didn't do that. Yeah, so we left it on the new line. Okay, this is a little bit, we're gonna have to rethink this a little bit. But anyway, so here we go. We're going line by line. Audio, mix all, mix ambiences, mix footsteps. All right. So I think, yeah. So let's just start using. So I have this, which advances strings. So let's say advance rest by t dot count plus 1, or let's just do S, because why are we making this extra variable? So that's all fine. Now, does anyone remember? So in DOS versus non-DOS, is it 1310 versus just 13, or is it 1310 versus just 10? I never remember this. Anyway, so what we'll do is, so we find the character from left, looking for, let's just handle 1310 right now, and whatever, we can do the other thing later. If s.count, if s of 0 is equal to 10, advance s by 1. So if we hit a 1310, we skip the 10. All right. In the case of a, yeah. So now the only problem is this is not a very good function that I'm trying to use, because it returns the same result if the first character is what it's looking for as if that character does not exist. So we'll return a bool. So we return true if we actually found the character and false if we don't, right? So then we say found, and instead of not t, we say if not found, right? Because the first time we had 2 returns in a row, we ended up on a return, and we returned the empty string because that was all that was there before the next return, but empty string meant, oh, we're done with the file, which is why we got all the rest in one line. All right. Well, no. because we still stopped. Because this guy, okay. We want to carry that same strategy up to here. All right, we finally got it. Well, this shouldn't have been that hard, but such is how it goes sometimes when you're programming something in a new way and haven't really thought about it in a while. Okay, someone says 1310 for DOS, 10 for non-DOS. So let's switch it around then. Because if we're in non-DOS, we won't ever find a 13, right? So we're going to find a 10, right? And again, if we don't find that, if we do find it, then we want to modify t, right? So if t.count, if t.data, or if t sub t.count minus 1 is equal to 13, t.count. So we go to the 10, and then if we see the 13 before that, I need to fix that error reporting. Basically what's happening here is two threads that are like reporting an error at once or something. It's bad news. I need to put a mutex around it. The hell is going on? Oh, I didn't put the if. You need the if. All right, so that still worked. So that's cool. No, I don't think it's 1013. I think it's 1310. It's CRLF, right? 1310. Come on, people. Anyway, this worked. So there you go. So now here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to start paying attention. So now we're eating the file line by line, right? So now we're going to say eat leading spaces, or we'll just call it eat spaces on each line. And then if we have an empty line, just continue. You know what, let's start line number at 0, so we can just put that at the head. So if we eat the spaces, if we've got nothing left, we continue. If it starts with a colon, then we print. We got a subfolder, else print value. Right? Because we want to do different things if we encounter each of those things. So we don't have eat spaces yet. Scope file. Oh, you know what? We're going to want all this text file parsing stuff, so whatever. We'll make it global. Eat spaces. While SP is equal to while true, C is equal to SP if, so what do we consider spaces? Because we know we don't have, we'll just say if it's, Oh. Yeah. We'll just say if C is equal to that, if C is not equal to that, we'll break. Otherwise, wait, what am I doing? It's a... This is what I get for streaming without enough snacks. I do have snacks here, I just haven't dug into them. So while s.count, if s of 0 is not equal to a space, break, advance s by 1, right? And then we could, I don't know why I'm doing this with a pointer, because that's just making it more awkward. Let's just do it this way. Because that way it's a function that can be called functionally. Except I need to copy the parameter, because we have read-only parameters. So while it's not an empty string, and you know, we can just do that. So there. Now there's one other thing I actually want to have, which is this is a comment. This is also a comment. Okay, so okay. So eat spaces is now, we'll say line equals eat spaces line. Okay, so we have a comment, we have a subfolder, we have values, we have a comment, we have a subfolder, we have values. So that's great. So now, let's start parsing things. A little bit. We'll just start little by little. Well, actually, let's check this in, because it always gives me... Yeah, I don't do character literals because they're dumb. I mean, they're fine. Like, if you're going to spend all your time parsing files, it's fine, but the percentage of code where I parse files is very small. And so to use an entire one of your common syntactical characters just to designate character literals seems a little goofy. So I don't do that. All right. So if it's a colon, then we'll say if line.count is less than 2, print error, line starting with colon must. You know what, let's start logging. How does log work? So log, because this way we know where it comes from, variables. Okay. Error, line starting with colon must have a slash and a name after. So we're going to do a pretty good job, because you never know what someone's going to do. So we're going to do a pretty good job of reporting what happens. Right? Else, if line sub 1 is not equal to this, we log, oh, error at line something, right? That's why we want the line number. Expected a slash after colon. Gah. Let's do this single quote thing. Else advance line comma 2 folder name equals line print folder name there. So we're just doing a little bit of stuff to like peel the start off of that. What did I do? Type mismatch. Argument 3? How did I? Oh, snap. I don't have a, okay, wait. I'm just calling the wrong thing. I have a log print. Oh, but it takes the mode. Ah. All right, fine. This is the one that I need to simplify because I don't usually want to think about how serious of a message is. It is, I just want to use the format string. You know what? Screw it. We're going to do a version of log print that doesn't do that. We're going to say return log print ident log mode.everyday format string args. Right? And then we'll say log print and log print. And line number. Compiler bug. Oh my. Oh my, that's good. Not really, okay. Log print, compiler, bug. So all you people out there saying, why don't you release the compiler today? I want to use it, blah, blah, blah. It's because there's bugs still and you can run into problems like that. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't really know what the cause of that is. Let's try this. And if that doesn't work, we'll fall back. That doesn't work. Okay. Something about somebody broke something somewhere. All right. So we're just going to print. That's where we're at right now. That'll be fine for now. Still, whoa. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with... I might have to break out the debugger. Wait, what did I just do? What could it, I haven't even done anything now. This is so weird. Anyone have a guess on what I'm doing that the compiler is so unhappy with that it's choosing to crash? Still. Did I make an inadvertent... Let's see. I don't trust command line revert. So I edited basic find character from left, but that's been fine. I edited print Oh, did I leave log print in there? No, I comment. Oh, I didn't save it commented out. Okay, that's what's going on. I didn't save my file. All right, so this is why you need to minimize problems, because people will get confused and do things like not save their file and introduce even more problems than there are. Okay, so that's not crashing anymore. So I should be able to log if I use the long form. Something about going from one of those overloads to the other was annoying it. All right, that is on the list for things to investigate. All right, so now we're just we're checking for proper syntax, and now we're peeling off that stuff from the folder name because you see that there. So now we're going to ignore the comments. So ignore comments. And then for value, we're going to peel off the name. And then once we have that, we are going to then start doing the interesting part that involves introspection soon. All right. So value. So here, I'm just going to scan all the characters. I'm going to say RHS is line, RHS is for right-hand side. And I will say while RHS and if break. I don't have short circuit and yet, so sometimes when you would do things with a short circuit and, they'll produce bad code, which is why I'm going to do short circuit and, but it's lower on the to-do list. So that's a case where I would have used the short circuit and, like, while the string is true and dereference the first character, but I can't really do that yet. So if RHS sub 0 is equal to a space, we're basically going to look for a space, right? Now, if we couldn't find a space, then we will log error expected a space after the name of a variable, right? Otherwise, so now we want it, so we're going to say name is line, but name dot count minus equals RHS dot count. So now name is just the name, not including the spaces. And then we'll say RHS equals eat spaces RHS, right? So now we should have a name value pair. So we say name is that, value, we'll put it on a new line, value is that, right? Oh, we infinite looped it because we didn't advance this. Okay, so now we've got all these variables in name value pairs, right? So folder name audio, name mix all, value 1, name mix ambiances, name mix footsteps. So this is all successful. Now, we've basically parsed the file successfully, apart from dealing with subfolders, which we will do later. So now we need to actually use introspection to combine these with runtime variables. So I'm going to reheat some tea. While I'm doing that, are there any questions about what we have done so far? Right? This is all just relatively straightforward chomping on a file. It's not that big of a deal. Let me know. Oh, you know, we should actually do some simple tests. So, like, one of the things I tested for was, like, what if we do that? And it does. It says error at not line 22, expected a space after the name of a variable. this is working at least reasonably well, right? It's not hopefully going to flake on us. Okay, oh, let me get some water. Water. Alrighty, questions. Are there videos archived where I hook up LLVM? No, because I didn't do that work. Josh Schulzman did that work, and I have hardly even looked at our LLVM code, so I can't even tell you much about it. Is the double, okay, so this operator someone is asking about, if operating on numbers, it's the same as in C, it's a left shift, but the way I'm using it here, that's a pointer dereference. And the reason is because in this language, star is not a pointer dereference, that's taking the address. So this is the opposite of that, both of which are different than they are in C. Should easy file reading writing be part of a standard library for a new language? Probably. Why wouldn't it be? I mean, I already part of it. So this, you know, I started by saying read entire file. That's like in the library, right? So that pulls, oh, I should free it. Defer free file data. You know, so that's already in the library, and so then, you know, it would make sense also to have a little text file parser library that has this kind of stuff in it. You know, that would be totally fine. Like, you could take this whole loop and just have, you know, chomp the different lines of the file and then pass every line to like a lambda that people passed in as an argument, right? To a callback or something, that would be fine. I'm sure lots of libraries have that kind of thing. Is there something similar to file and line macros? Yeah, we have hash file and hash line. But that's not what we want to log in these cases, right? We don't care about in what source code line this code is for this kind of logging. We care about what line number in that file. Am I planning to support working with libs using _vector call? Sure. I mean, why not? Okay, well, there's no questions about what we're actually doing, which makes me wonder if anyone is actually following along or cares, but we're going to keep going. Don't worry, you got here just for the interesting part. All right. Now, we are going to make a struct that contains all these things. So this is going to be interesting because I want to give these things actually slightly different names. Well, here's what I'm thinking, right? So I want to let you just make a bunch of structs and have the system know where to put the values. I'm not completely sure. We'll do this way for now. Like the fully automated, fully introspection way. I'm not actually sure in the long term that it's the right thing. But it's the polar opposite of the way the C++ version would do it, which is we'll do it that way and that'll be informative, and then we'll decide like where in the middle we might want to like add the potential to manually bind names or something. Anyway. I'm going to at least capitalize these because they're going to be structs in the actual code. So this is going to be a struct, and it's going to have all this stuff. Right? And we're going to have misc. I don't know why these are floats. That's ridiculous. And dev is a struct. Let's get rid of that. And display is a struct. Okay, so our job now is to map this stuff here to this stuff. And how are we going to do that? So I'm going to start with a little bit of a manual thing where I tell the system what the relevant structs are that hold things, because I think, you know, we could search through the whole namespace of the program or something, but that has the potential to get confusing, because what if there's something called audio in multiple modules or something, you know. So I think and plus, like I said, I want the ability to like give it random stuff. Like maybe all these mix variables are directly on the sound player, and I just want to give it the sound player maybe, right? So yeah, let's try it that way. Okay, this still compiles. So I'm going to do a thing where we say now parse the file data. But before we parse the file data, what is going on with my editor? God. Oh, all right. First, gather the appropriate structs that hold the values. So we're going to do this. We're going to have okay, first of all, we need instances of all these things. These are just types, right? So we need like audio, the audio, misc, the misc, dev, the dev, display, the display, right? This is just a test. Later, this storage would go like wherever in the game we really want it to go. But for now, we just need somewhere to put all these variables. Am I only supporting bools, ints, and floats? Well, also strings. There just aren't any strings in this example yet. We'll do that later, probably. Okay, so let's just do a thing where we register these structs. So we'll say add value, or add, I don't know what to call these, add value holder for the audio, right? Add value holder for the misc, for the dev, and the display. And add value holder is going to say holder, this is going to be polymorphic, and we're going to have I think value holder is a dumb name, but that's all that's coming to mind right now. We could call it a directory or something, but so this is going to contain a struct info that's a pointer to the type info for the struct that's holding these particular values, and a data pointer that's a void pointer to the struct, right? So we're going to make a value holder here. The holder's data pointer is going to be holder, and the holder's struct info is going to be cast to type info struct t. We want to protect this, because if somebody calls this with like a pointer to float or something stupid, what's the best way to do that? Well, actually, sorry, because t is not the type info, never mind. So info, type info of t, if info, what's this called? Type info tag. Type is not equal to type info tag dot struct. Print error calling add value holder with a non-struct pointer argument. Assert false. Okay. Otherwise, that. I think that'll compile. Audio, oh. I just fell back to, this is a problem with going back and forth between C++ and something else. What if I have multiple audios, MISCs, etc.? Well, that's what I'm doing this for, this make value holder, right? So I'm going to try and do a happy medium where I do have to manually register some things with the system, but it's only like the directories, and then the entries in the directories just will automatically track, right? Because that way you won't go astray and pull in some random part of the program. Don't ask me about JSON, Jesus. God, no. The thing you want to keep clear about all this is that this is a compiled language, right? This is a C kind of language. It's not like a JavaScript kind of language where random stuff gets interpreted at runtime, right? So in languages where random stuff gets interpreted at runtime and they're consequently much slower and more complex, in those cases it's easier to like dynamically bind names to values and stuff because your value is some big random runtime thing. In this case, that's not true. Our value is just like a memory location somewhere. Now you could, like after I do all this work, it's possible that I might see a way to factor it into a reusable standard library component, or find a way to modify the language to make it more reusable like that. So that's kind of why I'm doing this exercise, right? So it wouldn't really be a thing supported by the language, it would be a thing done by the standard library, which I suspect is also what's happening in JavaScript, or Java, or whatever JSON is for. What is the format of the default string, and does it use null termination? I said that at the beginning of this, so I'm not going to repeat myself. You can go back and watch it later. Okay. So we've got these value holders. And just to make sure we're getting the right I want to make sure I'm not getting garbage out of this, so I'm just going to print that. Redefinition of parameter holder. Oh, right. Holder pointer, and then array add let's go up here at the top. We'll say holders is a dynamic array of value holder. Array add holders holder. All right. Ooh, I crashed somehow. It's probably in that print. No? Woo, all right. Problem is I haven't fixed the LLVM thing from yesterday, so I still can't debug because I wanted to do this stream. Interesting. Let's just, what? What is going on, people? How are we crashing? What did I do? Is it this free? Oh, geez. All right. This is actually a pattern that we should detect and issue a warning for. So the problem is this defer. doesn't copy the value of file data. So, you know, we're modifying file data by consuming lines off it. And so the thing that we free at the end of the procedure is not the same thing anymore. See? And I've made that mistake a couple of times, which means when I see it, it's easier to figure out what's going on, like right now. But the bad thing is I've made that mistake a couple times, which means other people will also make that mistake a lot, which means we're going to need to do something about it. But that's good. That's why we do this. All right. Let's go back to dereferencing this. Okay, so so if you watched the metadata kind of demos from a long time ago, you'll maybe recognize this. But for each of these things, we got type infos for the struct. So this is the struct called audio, and this is the struct called misc, and this is the struct called dev, and this is the struct called display. Now, just to show that this is working, let's go for a second and we'll say print struct, let's put a new line there, and struct name. So we're going to print out the name. I.name, right? And then for I.members, print member get.name, right? Okay. So there we go. So you see we have this struct called audio, and we get all the members in it, and we know the names. And we have a struct called misc, and we know the names. We have a struct called dev and a struct called display. So that's working great. And all we had to do to register all this stuff is call one function per struct. And that seems pretty good to me, right? So now we've sort of done the two endpoints, right? We've got the names out of the file, and we've got the names out of the metadata for the program, and now we just have to hook those together, and then we're good. So does that make sense? Any questions about that before we move on? Any questions about that before we move? Oh, there's one other thing we're going to need to know while I'm waiting for questions. I'm sure someone will come up with interesting questions. We also need to know not just the name that we're printing out here of every member, but we need to know the memory offset, which I believe we're told here, offset in bytes. So member at offset whatever. So that's the offset from the start of the struct where that member is stored. So if we want to read or write the value, then we take a pointer to that offset from the base and party. Okay, so you see, here we go. So mix all offset 0, mix ambience is offset 4, right? These are all floats, so they're an offset of 4 bytes from each other, which totally makes sense, right? This is assigned 64 bits, so these are offset at 8 bytes from each other, etc. So this is all working great. Isn't value holder basically just an any? You know, it kind of is. That is a good point. The only difference really between this and an any is that this is a type info struct, right? Which means we won't have to cast it later. And there is some value to that. There's some value to knowing, like, okay, if I ever dereference this, I know it's a struct pointer. It's not just a random type info pointer. But it's basically an any, yes. You know what, though? Because I'm going to take offsets, I'm actually going to make this a pointer to U8. Because I'm going to want to add integer offsets to this to get the data pointer, right? Don't you need to define new structs if they come up in the future, similar to how you would do it in C++? I don't really see how this is that different. What are you really saving? We're saving two things, at least. One is you only, well, we have a lot of freedom here, okay? So if I wanted to, I could say, we don't want to hand register anything. And all of this stuff, we're just going to put, for example, in a special file. And anything in this file is valid target for metadata or whatever, right? We could do that. I don't want to do that because that's not really the way I want to work, I don't think. But maybe, you know, that's one option that we have, right? But there's a huge, huge difference in practice between having to register just every one of these and having to register every individual variable. Remember, there's like 300 variables or something, and there's only like 10 folders. So it's really a big difference in terms of how much maintenance you have to do. The other thing that the detail that I didn't go into is on the C++ side, that attach macro calls a procedure that has to have like 6 overloads based on the type of the argument, because that's how we know what type we're going to deal with, whereas here we have metadata, right? And then the C++ version had to define, like I showed, it's like 2,000 lines, right? It has all this code to say, well, there's these different types of values, and we have nodes that describe that. We don't have any of that here, right? So we're 160 lines so far compared to 1,800. So we're less than 10% the size so far, and we're like 2/3 of the way done. That's great, right? To get to be 10% of the code is amazing. We'll probably go over 10%, right? But we're not, I don't think we're going to hit 30%. So it's a drastically less code. And in fact, this stuff, all of this stuff shouldn't even count because this is not part of the system. This is just data that lives elsewhere in the program, right? The system is everything from here to the bottom. So it's way less code. I mean, and the fact that you can't see, if you can't really see why it's way less code, it's because I didn't laboriously go through the C++ version. But trust me, there's more stuff there than you would like. Can I auto-generate the structs at compile time from the variables file? Yes, but as I addressed at the beginning of the stream, I don't want that because I want the code to be definitive, and because I want these variables to live wherever they might. So these audio variables, right now I have them in a separate struct, but these might just be, so say I use somebody's audio library that I didn't even write, and I don't want to edit the files for, right? And that audio library might have some variables on it, right? And maybe I want to bind directly to those variables into this tweak file. I could do that, right? With the way that I'm setting it up now. Whereas if you're like generating code from the file, you can't really do that anymore. But you could. I mean, you know, when you ask, could you do that? Yes, you could do that. It's just not the way that I want to do this. Wouldn't it be better for add value holder to receive an any rather than a pointer to $T? I'm not sure why it would be better. So the reason why I say pointer to $T is it gives you some automatic type checking. So if I say x is an int, and then I add value holder x, right, then we get pointer versus non-pointer, right? It's saying you're giving me something that's not a pointer and I need a pointer, right? So, or if I do this, right, if I forget to take the pointer to the audio, yeah. However, no, that's fine, yeah. So, so basically, saying it's a pointer to $T means the compiler will handle a certain set of error reporting and checking for us. If we make this an any, then we have to put more error checking in here. Like first we would have to check that it's a pointer before we check this part, right? And you know, it's up to you how you want to do that. I feel like I want to do it this way, but you could do it the other way, yeah. All right, I'm gonna turn a light on and then we'll continue. Okay, so like I said, yeah, it's true. I mean, people make weird systems to try to generate code from data files like this, but you can never do it completely in C or C++, right? You have to have multiple build steps where you compile a program and run that on some other program and whatever, right? So here you could do it all in one build step. It's not what I choose to do for this, right? Okay, so we've parsed the names out of the file, and we've parsed the names out of the, not even parsed, but we've gotten to the names of where the data goes. So here's what we're going to do. When we're going to maintain, while we're parsing this file, what are these called? Value holders. We're going to say the current holder is a pointer to value holder, right? Now, if let's test this before we do anything. So every time, let's go back to the file, every time we see one of these, that's going to tell us what holder to go to. If we have a value before one of those, then we don't really know where it goes. So I'm going to say that's an error. So down here, where we have a variable, we say if no current holder, log print variables log mode.everyday error at line %, trying to set the value of whatever, but a folder has not been designated. Whatever, these aren't very good error messages, it's fine. Name. Oh, and the line number and name, right? Else, incomplete, set value in holder. Okay. Now, so that should compile hopefully. All right. After all this is done, just to make sure it works, I'm going to print out some values. I'm going to say print the audio.mix all is .mix all, right? And I'm going to say dev.profiling is dev.profiling. All right, so currently, let's set this to true by default so it's different. Actually, let's pick vsync, because that's a commonly changed variable. Display.vsync is right, so basically we're going to have the values in the file be different from the values in memory so that we'll know when it's working because the values will change. So right now, okay, mix all is 1 and vsync is true. Oh, and we've got all these errors that we haven't designated folders, even though we have, because we're not actually responding to that. Okay, so that's good, because now this is telling us exactly what to do. We have to set the value holder, or what I'm calling the folder, to the user as we get these names. We have to set, when we find the members, we have to set the actual value. So first step is to get rid of all these errors. Second step is to actually do this part. So here we go. When we have a folder name, we're going to do this. We're going to say for holders, we're going to say found is some pointer to a value holder. For holders, if it dot, where's holder? So this is it, right? If it dot struct info.name is equal to folder name, then what was our current folder called? Current holder, right? Holder and folder is confusing. Maybe I should just call it value folder, right? Let's do that. Current folder equals it, and break, because we don't have to search anymore. Else, or no, that's it. So if we didn't find, sorry, found equals it. If we didn't find anything, then we log at this line number, error at line whatever, folder whatever is not defined by the game code, comma, whoops, line number and folder name, right? If we did find it though, well, we don't need to do anything. Okay, so in theory, well, let's see what happens. Oh. Right, because I'm going to, so this traverses this array by value. That makes it go by pointer, so I'm taking a pointer to each one, right? So then when I say found equals it is the implicit name for the iterated variable in this loop. Now it'll be a pointer instead of a value. All right. Hey, look. We totally didn't get errors anymore. Let's actually print set current folder to whatever the name is, and we'll print out the address of the data structure just because why not? Right? There we go. So that's totally working. You know, we don't, let's stop printing this metadata now, because we verified that this works. We don't really need it. In fact, all that goes away. So now we're just printing this stuff. So this is great. So we're setting the folder correctly, and now we just need to find the value name. So we want to find the member. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say for current folder.struct info.members, and we're going to say found type info struct member if it.name is equal to name, found equals it, break, otherwise we just continue again. And if we didn't find this, so this is looking up the variable in the thing. If we didn't find it, we say error at line whatever, variable whatever is not a member of folder whatever. Line number, name, and current folder.struct info.name. Else print, hey, we found the listing for comma name, right? Now I did the same thing again. Take a pointer to it. All right. That's working great. Look, we found the listings for all these things. So now all we have to do is poke the value. Now, all we have to do is poke the value. Okay, before I do that, does everyone get what's happening? Let's take score. Our file is 189 lines long, and we're most of the way done with this thing that took 1,800 lines in C++. Not a totally fair comparison because I didn't go to the C++ version and clean out all the cruft, but it's still a substantial amount of code there. Now we don't yet parse the values, so that's going to take a little bit, but we're gonna do that right here. Actually, we'll bust that into a separate function because that'll be substantial enough. So we'll say poke value current folder, the member, and the string of the right-hand side. Right, so poke value, folder, value folder, member is a pointer to type info struct member, and RHS is a string. And you know what? Let's take the line number, because we haven't, like if we get a parse error, like if someone wants to parse an integer and we get like a bool or something, we want to say that it's the wrong value maybe. So let's pass the line number. So are there questions? Yeah, things that are declared but not assigned when they're declared get a default value, which is 0, basically. Top 3 reasons this is so much shorter. I've said it many times, but it's because I don't have to write all this weird glue code to hook up values and simulate type systems and all that, because we were able to piggyback on the metadata that the compiler provides. And it's not just that it's shorter, it's a lot more convenient. Right? Okay. So I'm going to poke a value. Oh, you can go back and watch the beginning. I don't want to, be repetitive for people who haven't been here. Well, a quick thing that we're solving is we want to have a variable tweaks file like this that is in text that lives somewhere, and we want to map that to values in the game, in the compiled game. I don't want to get on off-topic questions right now. I want to stay focused and do this. So here we go. We've got the member, and the member tells us the type of the actual thing. So we're going to say type is member.type if type is equal to well, let's say using type info tag.members. So we get short names for all these things. If type is equal to integer, else if type is equal to float, else if type is equal to bool. I don't have switch yet, which is why I'm doing a bunch of this. Else if type is equal to string, else. So that's going to be all that we really support in the tweak file right now. Integers, floats, bool, strings. Anything else we'll deal with later. Okay, so let's start. Well, let's make error messages for things that we aren't done with yet. We're going to say incomplete. Values of this type are not yet handled. Line. So that'll keep us working till we're done. Well, let's just compile that. Or okay, wait, if we get down here, we say error is of a type that is not handled by the variable system. Right, so member.name. So if you try to bind some member that doesn't fall into one of these categories, we say, look, we don't do that. You know, maybe in the future we can handle structs and all that stuff, but for now we're not going to do that. We're just going to do these scalars. Oh, type. So type is actually not, we want type dot type. Let's call that kind. When there's too many types, no. All right. Okay, check it out. We see all these bindings, and they're all of types that are not handled, which is no surprise. Tim is asking, would it be possible to make a compile time version of the serialization that specializes a function rather than iterating on type info? Probably. I mean, you would have to propose a more specific design because I'm not sure what the savings is if you do that, because you still have to map the name in the file to the thing somehow, right? So I'm not sure. Maybe that's a better way to do it, but I'm not sure exactly what you're suggesting actually right now. Okay. What was I doing? Oh, I was going to see if I have, yeah, so I have A to I and A to F. So I'm going to use those. So I'm going to say int value A to I RHS. Really, I should, do we want to pre-check? Because A to I doesn't, it's something we're inheriting from C, right? And it doesn't give us information about whether the integer parsed well or something, right? So eventually we probably want to write our own A to I that tells us if it encountered weird characters instead of just returning 0. But for now, write our own version of A to I that returns more specific information about what went wrong in case of failure. Okay, otherwise though, so we have this int value. Now here's the thing. We know that our struct member is an integer, but it could be an integer of several different sizes, right? And it could be signed or unsigned, but we're not going to worry about that. We're going to just assume that you knew what you were doing as a programmer with respect to signed or unsigned. But here's what we're going to do. Let's go back to the type info integer. So auto info, no, not auto, info cast type info integer of member.type, right? We know it's an integer because kind is equal to integer. So this will tell us how many bits it is, right? So if info.size in bits is equal to 8. Now the other thing about this is giving us a lot more flexibility. The C++ version only handled a couple of integer types, but we're going to do 8, 16, and 32 and 64. Else 16, else 32, else assert info.size in bits I keep wanting to type bytes. B-I-T-E-S. Okay, so in each of these cases, we're going to say some pointer, cast, pointer to U8, well, S8, whatever. And we want to look in folder dot data, right? Folder dot data plus member dot offset in bytes, and we want to say put into P cast S8 int value. Now we can detect, well, we might want to detect overflow. We'll save that for later because signed versus unsigned is weird. We might just go whole hog and do a full signed versus unsigned for all of these, but detect overflow, I'm going to put that in all of these. Well, all these. C++ version didn't detect overflow. It didn't do any of this stuff. So this is going to be better. All right, so we're going to do the same thing here, except S16, S16, S32. And we could even make this, if this becomes non-trivial, we can make this a polymorphic function, actually, I think. All right. So let's see what happens there. Well, it doesn't compile yet. Oh, because A to I is a C. Oh, God. Yeah, okay, so this is a C routine, which means it wants a C string. This is another reason to replace, I mean, we don't want to depend on libc at all, so all this stuff is going to get replaced eventually. But this is an especially good reason because string things are annoying. Okay, C RHS is 2C string of RHS, defer 3C RHS. So we're doing a heap allocation there, which sucks, but well, it's temporary. Here's the thing. Oh, we did have an integer value. So misc has integer values, font, bitmap, size, x, and y. We're not printing those yet. Let's make the defaults 512, 512. This might be our first total victory. We'll say font, bitmap, size, x is the misc dot font bitmap size x. All right. Hey, it's 1024, but we set it to 512 in our program, so it worked. We successfully read it out of the file and matched it up. So the other types, so the float type doesn't work yet, and the Boolean doesn't work yet, but the integer worked, so integral success. Okay. Any other questions before we continue? Any other questions? While I'm waiting for questions, we're going to do the same thing here. So for float, we're going to say it's a type info float. There's only two kinds of floats to worry about, so it's not going to be as much code. We do also have a size in bits. So it's either going to be 32-bit or 64. And we're not going to worry about overflow because whatever. Right. And we're going to have to do all this junk. Actually, we'll do all this because this comment is going to apply equally. We change A to I to A to F, and this is float value. Questions? Nobody has questions, which means nobody is following. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, why didn't that work? Why didn't that work? Oh, because I casted this to float 32 instead of 64. I hope someone caught that. I'm actually surprised. I thought those would have been 32-bit values. No, okay, that didn't fix it. What is happening? Let's make sure that our float value that we got from A to F okay, A to F is returning us garbage. That's what's going on. So see that? I save float value and it's always something terrible, which means I've declared it incorrectly. This probably returns float 64 in C, or double. Let's see. A to F, C++ reference. Yeah, it returns double. So my declaration here was just wrong. Wait, what? Oh, right, because I changed the declaration. I have to change other things in my code that use it. You can tell I never tested that part of the editor. Sokoban, source, editor, panel. This calls A to F, which is now returning a different type. All right. Hey, look, 1.65000, which is what we put in our file. Let's change it to 1.8. There. Hey, look, it's 1.234.830. So that's great. This is great. Oh, it's so good. Any questions about this? Any questions? Let's do bool. Bool is going to be super easy. If RHS sub 0, we're just going to check if it's T or not. And we'll allow capital T. Well, we'll error check, right? Else if it's F or false, else error in line, Boolean value must be true or false, comma line number, right? So we're gonna say P is cast pointer to bool, P equals true, P equals false. Yes, switch will be implemented eventually. Everybody asks that. Those are the simple things. It's easy to do switch. It's hard to do all the stuff that is behind the functionality that I'm using right now. All right. Okay, let's get rid of some of these prints. We don't need that anymore, and we don't need that. All right, so we haven't done strings yet. We're at 254 lines. That is so much shorter than the C++ version. It's crazy. It's crazy. And we handle more things. We handle more integer and float types. Like I think I only handled 32-bit float in the C++ version, for example. No shorthand for bools as in 1 and 0. If you want to do that, maybe. I just, you know, it would be easy enough to make that work, but I don't feel like it. Expanding on Tim's question, would it have been worth it to look up the offsets for those struct members at compile time instead of iterating over the type info at runtime? Oh, I see. Well, maybe, but you would have to store those offsets somewhere that is faster for you to get to, right? Because you still have to like map the name to the offset somehow. If you wanted to do that in a different way and you had a good compile time way of setting that up, then that would totally work. It's just not clear to me what that is. Okay, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. And when I come back, we are going to do string values. And what else? What else would be? Oh, hot loading. We got to make sure that this hot loads. So that'll be fun. Hot loading and string values. Oh, some sort of metaprogram that would generate all this stuff that I'm doing is the question. I mean, all this stuff that I'm doing is already can be library code, right? Like everything here can be in the standard library or any library. The only stuff that wouldn't be in the library and that you don't want to be is your data declarations, right? So all this other stuff is abstractable. Like I could paste this into a totally different game engine and it would work. So I don't think there's the need to do compile time stuff to generate more. But again, maybe I'm just not clear on what is the problem that you guys are trying to solve. Maybe I just don't see that. Okay, 5-minute break. Okay, we are back. We are back in the saddle again. Okay, I wonder if I've done something in the code base already that kind of parses strings. Let me look in the witness for a second, because I want to see what we did there. So we tend to just have strings without new lines and stuff, so maybe I'm going to do that. Maybe it's just going to be a string has to start with a quote and end with a quote, and has non-quote characters in the middle. If we want to do a more elaborate string parser later, we can do that. You know, for something like this, you might see the need to backslash quotes or whatever, but yeah. Couldn't I mark this folder structs with notes in the code? That way you can search the entire namespace for those definitions and take out that part of the process. Yes, you could do that. However, right, there would still be some cases that would be annoying, like the aforementioned case where there's somebody else's audio library and you want to poke variables in there. You don't want to edit their file to put a note on their struct, right? So maybe there could be a syntax where you put notes on somebody else's struct, but declare that in your file. But I don't have the ability to do that right now. So that would be annoying. All righty. I mentioned in the past I don't like JSON. Is there a data interchange format I like? What is a data interchange format anyway? Answer me that, and then we can have a discussion. Escape the tag, not the content. I don't know what that means in this context. Does Pear have an alternative way he would like strings to be quoted? All right. So we were at 250 lines, which is about 1/6 to 1/7 of the C++ code size. That's great. It's tremendously smaller. Okay. Oh yeah, I was going to do string. So does our RHS already have, yeah. We already ate the spaces on the right-hand side there. So if RHS sub 0 is not equal to character quote I should actually make a helper function that just, so I don't have to keep putting these two parameters, but whatever. Error in line percent. Start string value must begin with a quote, comma, line number. All right, otherwise, and then write quote, find, until quote, character from left. I kind of want a different function. Oh, maybe I don't. Find character from left, RHS, quote. If we didn't find string value must end with a quote. Otherwise, we did find it. And our string is this until quote thing. Now, we have to decide what the policy is in our game about strings. I'm going to say that they're freed and allocated on the heap. And that we free. Or no, let's just leak them because, okay, policy is to leak pre-existing strings because we should only, because this would only really be a leak during development when we hotload this file, which is not something, which is not a magnitude of leak that we care about. We could instead insist that all strings in the affected structs are heap allocated, but that would be inconvenient when it comes to initializing them from within the code. I saw a question go by. Incorrect dereference, someone says. Where? I don't see an incorrect dereference. Maybe I'll find out when I try to compile. Okay, let's just see if that compiles. It does. All right. So now we need the pointer. P is cast a pointer to string this thing, right? And new string is a string. New string.count equals until quote dot count new string.data. We have to allocate and copy this because it's in the file data right now, and the file data is going to go away. Alloc new string.count mem copy new string.data until quote. Do I just have a copy string? I do. I start typing stuff sometimes. It's like a copy string until quote. Done. Okay. So P equal new string. Right? Right. Let's see if that compiles. Okay, that's never going to execute because we don't have any string values. Let's make a string value. Let's make a string value in MISC. We're going to say string value is hello. And, well, let's just print it first of all. Where's our place where we print things? The misc.string value is string value. It's hello. Let's see what happens. Whoops. Let's kill that one. String value is sailor. Who knows what's going to happen? It worked. The miss.string value is sailor. So that's great. We basically handle all the types that we care about most of the time. Someone's asking, what's the difference between string and array of uint 8? There isn't really, like those two things are the same. The difference is just knowing that something's supposed to be a string. Yeah. It's basically, you know, it's basically for human understandability that I have a thing called string. Oh, I steeped my tea too long. Okay, I'm going to remake this tea, and then we're going to do hot loading of this file, because that'll be awesome. Oh, too strong. Fortunately, I had enough hot water left over to make a new tea. Can't you compress all the number cases to one case by auto-casting since they are all the same? No, because let's look at that. You can't do it with an auto-cast because, here we go. You can't do this with an auto-cast because these have to actually be 4 separate code paths. And autocast will just force things into one memory size. These have to be 4 different size of memory sizes in the cast because the machine code has to be writes of 4 different sizes. This has to be a 1-byte write. This has to be a 2-byte write. Or this has to be a 2-byte write. This has to be a 4-byte write. This has to be an 8-byte write. So it basically has to be 4 different pieces of code. However, right, my teapot's complaining that it's out of water. Hold on. You could do a polymorphic thing, which is just like do it is inline. P is a pointer to, I don't know. You could do something here and put the code in there and just call it 4 times. But you can't really just generate one piece of code and have it work for everybody, because it has to do 4 different things. Like way down at the machine code level, it has to do 4 different things. About string versus array of uint 8, if it's about understandability, didn't you say binary data is usually represented as a string? Yes, but I find that good for understandability. String to me doesn't necessarily mean human readable. I don't know. Maybe that's not, you know, we have to see how the conventions work themselves out. For me, I don't see I mean, I see how you might think that that sounds weird and that that actually reduces understandability, but for me, I don't think so, because, you know, in any code base, you end up with a bunch of operations that you do on strings, and just being able to apply all of those to binary data is very useful. I don't know. I don't see it as inconsistent, but maybe I have a weird viewpoint on this. I see how it could not be clear to someone else. Yeah, I agree with what James Widman is saying in the chat, is like, this isn't quite enough repetition to bust out metaprogramming. If we detect overflow and then that becomes a lot, then maybe, but for 2 lines of code each, it's just like, you just do it, right? You just do it. Do string literals implicitly bind to array of U8? No, you would have to cast them. Neither of those. There's no implicit cast in either of those cases. Okay, what? Oh, I was going to hotload, and that's gonna be fun. Let's make sure I didn't break anything. Let's run it again just to be sure. Oh, look at that! So great, so great to have a game engine that does these things. Okay, so I'm going to print. So this is going to say reload, so that every time we load this, we print these things out. However, we're going to break this into two routines. Init variables is going to call reload variables after setting up this stuff, and then reload variables is going to be a routine that does all this. And now we can call reload variables any time. And we don't really need the comments now because the names of the procedures give us enough information. What will happen if you make a non-ASCII string? Well, strings are UTF-8, and UTF-8 is non-ASCII, so that's fine. Okay. Let's make sure that still compiles. All right. So now I don't exactly remember how hot loading works because I think I can set a callback. Let's see what happens. Hot loader init. So it gets a list of directories. Okay, so hotloader process change, checks to see what files have changed. It checks catalog. So I have these catalog things that are the things that we usually, oh, hotloader callback. Hotloader callback. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to say, so here we say hotloader init. I'm going to say hotloader register callback my callback, whatever, my hotloader callback. So this is going to get notified of every file change, and this has to take an asset change and whether it's handled, and if handled return print asset change. I'm not going to try to act on this yet. I just want to make sure this works. And change dot short name, right? Okay, so in theory, if this is actually working, which I hope it is, or we get to go debug it, if I go to all.variables and I put something in there, asset change, all. Okay, it's not giving us the full name. Let's go back in there. It's called full name. Oh, we have short name and extension. So change dot full name. If change dot extension, let's print the extension just in case. You know what? We're going to look at this a lot, so we're using that. So I never remember if the extension has the dot in it or not, but let's say if it's variables, then do something. It's a variables. Oh, you know what? Screw it. Let's just go for the gold. And let's actually, we had this reload variables, and we're going to change that to pass the file name. Right, so reload variables is going to take file name, whoops, as a string, and that's going to be file name, and then this is going to do that. So let's do that. All right, so that still works because our values changed. I can go to all.variables. It reloaded them. Now let's change vsync. Vsync was false. Let's change it to true. It's true now. Let's make this 1.999. Hey, look. Let's make the font bitmaps really weird shaped. Hey. So there we go. That is kind of all that I plan to do today. So now we've got we went from nothing at the start of this stream to a fully functional, parsed, simple and readable file format that allows me to do stuff. Actually, the one thing I'm going to want to do, let's read some more questions, but after that, I think I don't want these names to be bound directly in the program. I think I want to be able to remap these names because I'm already registering the data structures manually. Because, like I said, if this is from someone else's library, I'm not in control of what that struct is called. So, you know, I want to be able to name it myself. But aside from that, I think maybe we're done unless anyone else has suggestions on what to do. Someone asked, do I still use my Kinesis advantage? No. I just got annoyed. There are some things about it that are really annoying, having to do with placement of certain keys. I don't remember even exactly what the problems were, but I had the choice of either adapting to it or using regular keyboards, and I stayed with regular keyboards. But I find that as long as you pick a good keyboard that doesn't have a numeric keypad, then and you set up your desktop ergonomically, that I don't really have any problems that I need something like a Kinesis for. Are these variables to do with the compiler or the demo game? This is for a game. So we're putting this in a game engine, and these tweak files are like game stuff, and we are now fully reloading files, or reloading these values editably while the game is running. How did that hotload callback work? So the hotloader is something I wrote a while back. And again, this is probably going to be a standard thing provided in the standard library. But basically, when you start it up, you give it a set of folders to watch, which for us is just the data folder of the game. And we recursively, basically Win32 lets you do these things called file notify informations. And you can get notifications from Windows when files change, right? So basically, we watch for those notifications. And you'll also get them like when a file is added or deleted. So we watch for those notifications. And then, so here every frame, you know, we see if there's notifications ready. If there is, you know, we translate the file name from UTF-16 to UTF-8. And whatever, we do some various other things. We replace the slashes from Windows because everything's going to have backslashes. We make them into forward slashes. We digest, we break out the individual file name from the full path from the extension, and then we put all that stuff into a nice struct and pass that to you. I don't know what happened here. That's weird. Anyway, so that's what that is. This is something that we used in the Witness and probably in Braid, and I sort of ported it over here a while back. So, and it's very useful during development. So, you know, we reload texture maps, for example, so you can be in Photoshop and you can make changes to a texture and save it. And those changes will appear in game without you having to restart the game, right? So this is a very useful thing to have generally running. Am I planning to stream later today? Maybe, it's possible. Do I plan on supporting integers wider than 64 bits? I don't know. I mean, you can do that in a library if you want, right? I could see there might be some cases to want 128 because a lot of like vector units have 128, I guess, maybe. But beyond that, I'm not sure that it makes sense. Yeah, I'm definitely done a little earlier than I expected. I didn't know how long this would take. I didn't know if I would get done today or if I would get derailed by problems, but I didn't. I don't remember what time we started. I think it was 3:15. 2.5 hours seems to be about a par stream time, actually. So is there anything else that I should do during this session, or do we call it and then do I go work out or something? I don't want to get into talking about the witness asset system because that's off topic and it's a large subject. There's a lot of concerns. Well, that seems like I'm done. What about fixed point numbers? I mean, again, that's something you can do in a library or user code. I don't feel like it's the compiler's job to do fixed point numbers. Oh, that's a funny one. If a recently modified file hasn't been changed in the past couple of recompilations, but it's been accessed, warn, hey, are you sure you saved that source file? That would be pretty good. And you could do that at user level. So in the compile time metaprogram, you could do that, I think. That would be a funny one to just write. Am I going to support hot loading code? Probably later, eventually. The thing about hot loading code is, you know, if you change the size of a data structure, that's kind of a pain in the butt. But we actually could deal with that correctly even, I think. So, because we know which procedures depend on any particular data structure, so we could invalidate and recompile all of those. It's just, that's far enough away from a language semantics feature that I'm not worried about it yet. I'd rather just get the language done. Work out on stream, yeah, I know. Are there going to be any types of databases in the language? So this is the kind of programming language that doesn't have like a dictionary as a primitive type. That's not what we do, right? But what we do is we give you powerful enough facilities that you could build your own hash table, dictionary, whatever type, or use the ones from the standard library, and they will be nice to use and well functioning and stuff, right? But we're not the kind of language that builds that in as a primitive type. No, you can't try the language yet because the compiler's not done. Sorry. Eventually it'll be done, but not yet. Let me go here and let me get rid of my prints. Actually, let me turn this into a log because we decided to start unable to load file variables. File, whatever, exclamation point, comma, file name. So we'll get rid of these prints because those work. Done so much in the past couple of days. much. What's next on the to-do list for the game and the compiler? It's a good question. For the compiler, next on the to-do list is some bug fixes. Like, for example, during today's stream, we ran into a crash. That needs to get fixed. Yesterday, during the stream, I ran into, again, a bug that I've seen a couple times where overloads don't resolve sometimes. And I'm not sure whether that's because I intentionally picked a different overload resolution strategy than I think it is now, and I'm just getting confused by that and should simplify it, or whether there's legitimately a bug. So that has to get fixed. For the game, there's some other engine stuff I want to do. I want to load TGA files successfully. On the compiler end, I want to get rid of a lot more libc dependencies. So maybe, you know, so for right now, if we go, or this is more on the standard library side, but, you know, so for stuff like, remember all these math functions, right? I'm just calling the C runtime library version and A to F, A to I, and memcomp and whatever, and eventually all this should go away and get replaced by either things that we wrote ourselves, in the case of probably A to F or A to I, or some very robust library that we have source to, that may be in C or C++ or Fortran or something, like, for example, this math stuff. Because I don't think we want to link to Microsoft's cosign on Windows and whoever's cosign on Linux. Like, that seems like, why introduce that variability? Why not just provide the same cosign everywhere, right? So one by one, we're going to get rid of that stuff. Another one is in... So our default allocator here that everybody calls cmalloc, right? Which is just an alias for malloc. It's actually a stub to malloc in our other runtime support library, and that is a huge dependency on the C library. So what I would like to do, and maybe this is going to happen sooner than some of those other things, I'd like to get someone's open source allocator, like tcmalloc maybe, and link that, and change these to tcmalloc explicitly, as opposed to like whatever's in the random library, right? Because then again, we get the same thing across platforms. So, you know, doing some of that is probably next on my thing. Does the library have min and max? Yes. So here's min and here's max, right? So these are generics. They operate on everything for which less than is defined and greater than is defined. When do I think this will be ready for public release? I don't know. There's a little more work on the definition of the language, and then there's a lot more work that has to be done just on robustness of the compiler. And then work has to be done on making the standard library good. Are there operators like XOR and XNOR for use with Boolean variables? I don't know what happens if you say bool XOR bool. I think right now we don't support that. We could, you know, that would be fine. There's no XNOR operator, but you can declare your own operators. If you look on YouTube, there's a demo where I do operator declaration. Yeah. Someone's asking, how am I so productive? This is regular productivity level for me. This is not high productivity because I'm streaming and I'm explaining what I do. And I'm also doing limited in scope tasks, right? Really high productivity happens when you're doing just crazy amounts of stuff all at once. So this is not me at my most productive. It's also not me at my least productive. Yeah, dlmalloc is also popular, but I thought that dlmalloc was considered kind of old now. I don't know. I don't know what people think is the best malloc now. Do string variables work with all ASCII characters? I don't know what you're asking. Do you mean, do they parse in the parser? The parser is going to support all of UTF-8. It probably doesn't yet because I haven't tested it, but that's actually probably going to be a demo that I do soon because it'll be really easy and fun to have foreign language identifiers and stuff. So, you know, let me put that on my list of things to do soon. UTF-8 Lexer. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of little things to do like that, and none of them are big, but they all add up, and they all have to get done. Yeah, some of these answers I should pre-record and play from a soundboard. I should also pre-record why I use subversion and that my .emacs is not very interesting. I should pre-record all these things. Do I listen to music while I work off stream? Not these days. I might start doing that again just to do it, but usually I don't. Yeah, PT malloc is another one. I've shipped DL malloc and things, so Braid used DL malloc, but yeah, I think something else is appropriate. Yeah. I don't control whatever the bot is that answers those exclamation point things. I don't know how that works. All right, I think we're done with the stream for now. How am I enjoying sunny Seattle? I'm enjoying the sun, yes, when the little drops of sunlight that we get here. I'm in South Lake Union in Seattle. All right, thank you everybody for coming along, and it's possible that I will do another stream later tonight. I was thinking, so the game that I just showed, right, that I'm not really showing much of, this game right now, you know, this character is actually a 3D model, but everything is being rendered triangle by triangle in kind of an immediate mode rendering. And one of the next things on my to-do list that's not really that fun to do is to do vertex buffer objects per mesh. So maybe I'll do that tonight. I don't know if I'll be able to finish that because OpenGL is one of those things where if something goes wrong, it's a super pain in the ass to debug, but it might go well. So I'm going to maybe try that later and then also hook it up to the Hotloader and make sure that hot loading meshes works, which will be awesome. Yeah. So thanks for coming, everybody. See you later.